There's a live picture of the floor of the New York Stock Exchange about 35 minutes before the close of trading, and the S&P 500 is on track for a new four-year high. Dow Industrials holding on to a double-digit move, up 67 points on the Dow, and the Nasdaq is currently higher by 10.5. And that Standard & Poor's 500 at a four-year intraday high, driven by earnings today. That success is all about exceeding expectations on solid improvements year over year. Just listen to what Mike Thompson. There's a live picture of the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Final stretch of trading now. Dow Industrials and the Nasdaq strong today, with the Dow right now up about 68 points. There you go, 70 points right here on the Dow. 10,707 last trade, highest level of the day. Nasdaq higher by 11 points at 2197, and the S&P 500 is on track to hit a new four-year high at these levels, up 7.5 points, 1244. Last trade there. Well, awesome, huge, and fabulous are just some of the words being used by analysts to describe Prologis' latest quarter. And Wall Street is just as is up 67 points, and the Nasdaq is up 10 points. ExxonMobil is also higher. The company saw a 32% increase in earnings. A Cnbc alert, the S&P 500 on track to hit a new four-year high today. The Dow is higher by 58 points and the Nasdaq higher by 10 points. We've got just 12 minutes before the closing bell sounds. And we are making money now with a top portfolio manager who's There's your live shot of the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. We're in the final stretch, 5 minutes before the closing bell sounds, and the Dow is up 65 points, 65 points rather, sorry. Nasdaq up about 11.5 points right here. Time for the closing countdown as we take it to the bell. Ajay Kapoor is with us. He's Chief Global Strategist with Citigroup Smith Barney. He is our guest today, and here is why. A couple of stocks he picked for the closing bell back in early February have surged far ahead of the market. We want to show you some of Ajay Kapoor's picks, show you what they did since he chose them right here on the closing bell back in February. Celgene up 73% since he told our viewers to buy it. Baker Hughes, another one that he chose back in February, up 29%. As you see, up again today. Welcome, Ajay Kapoor. Good to have you back with us.
Thank you, Maria.
Also with us is Bob Pisani on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and Bertha Coombs is at NASDAQ. Ajay, nice performance there. Thank you for those picks. Tell me what you think of the recent rally in stocks and whether or not you expect this to continue for the rest of the year.
I think this is going to continue, Maria. I think the valuations for equities are pretty good, especially compared to bonds, both government and corporate bonds. The tape is very, very strong. Mid-cap stocks, small-cap stocks are doing exceptionally well. The LBO cycle is very, very strong. I've looked for inflation, but I couldn't find any. And the earnings numbers are supposed to be poor, but they're actually pretty good.
We're talking about 11% earnings growth or so for earnings, and revenue up about 10%. Bob Pisani, was that the main reason we saw this market do well today?
I'd have to say that the earnings news has certainly been good, but remember, Maria, as you know, buying begets buying, and when you see the moves that we've had late in the day in the last few days, where every day the lows keep moving up a little bit, and the markets keep moving up a little bit, it attracts more and more interest all of the time. I give a lot of the credit here to the earnings, but the technicals really matter. We've had an expansion of new highs. We have many indices at multi-year highs today. That attracts buyers. And look at the volume, Maria. We're past 1.5 billion shares here. We could do 1.6. That's a great volume on a summer day. We're getting new buyers in.
Not bad on the volume for sure. And Bertha, we're also looking at some pretty good technicals for the NASDAQ stocks.
We are. The NASDAQ also today putting in a new high for the year, new four-year high as well. And Maria, I don't know if you've noticed, the trim tab numbers are out. 2.8 million in inflows, $1 billion in inflows last week. A lot of retail folks putting money to work now, too, starting to look at stocks again. Ajay, I wonder, though, is this about earnings, or are people starting to anticipate perhaps that the Fed might be done in September? Are they starting to sort of position themselves ahead of that?
I think it's both. Our economists believe the Fed's probably going to be done by November at a peak of 4% Fed funds. And that's normally not a bad thing, especially if the Fed can pull off a soft landing. And that seems to be happening.
So what areas areas do you think underperform, Ajay? I mean, are there areas in the market that you think are going to outperform and really lead this rally in the second half of the year? Are there places that you think are sort of done at this point?
Well, for the past 3 months, I've been recommending that our clients buy technology stocks in the U.S., so be it tech, hardware, semiconductors, internet stocks. I also like biotech stocks quite a bit. I like small cap stocks. I like broker dealers. So if it's got a high beta, if it's toxic, and you don't want to buy it, you should buy it.
Yeah.
Which means that the guys who underperform really are going to be the more defensive areas.
Talk about a toxic situation. Bob Pisani, what was the post like down there of Daimler Chrysler? 10% rally on the stock today. Management shakeup. How did it look?
And well, it was busy all throughout the day. Look, the simple fact is that Dieter, as people down here like to call him, they call them by their first names here, is beloved. And for whatever reason, the guy has got a great reputation down here on Wall Street, and they believe this guy can bring it back. Maria, I just want to note how strong the markets have been today, and I know I said it before, but we are sitting here in the middle of July, and this time last year, I was looking at 1.1, 1.2 billion share days. Now we're looking at 1.5, 1.6, with the S&P at 4-year highs, the Russell at historic highs, all of the market internals. We got almost 400 new highs down here today. This is as good as it gets for the bulls, and certainly the happiness is that we're ending earnings season with good numbers overall. We're going into a slower period in the next couple of weeks, Maria, but this is good.
What a nice month this was. Plus, IPO is also pretty hot. Ajay, I want to talk to you a little about that as well, but let's take a look at the podium at the New York Stock Exchange as that bell comes down for a Thursday. We're going to keep talking to Ajay Kapoor in a few minutes here on the closing bell, but I'll say thank you to Bob and Bertha for now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing up 70 points at 4 o'clock on the East Coast, and the NASDAQ also higher by 12.25. Now we begin the second hour of the closing bell.
From the world leader in business news, this is the closing bell. Live at CNBC's global headquarters, Maria Bartiromo.
And good afternoon. A sizzling summer on Wall Street as stocks continue to rally, bringing the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 to 4-year closing highs. The numbers, analysis, and the outlook moments away. Also today on the bell, Daimler Chrysler stock up 10% as CEO Jürgen Schrempp steps down. We'll take a look at other companies poised to rally if their CEOs are shown the door. Microsoft is meeting with Wall Street analysts right now. We are there, and we will also tell you why some people believe the company's best earnings and sales are yet to come. And home builder stocks on fire, bouncing back from their interest rate-driven swoon. But there could be tougher times ahead. We're on it. But first up, Wall Street's hot July. Look at the major gains for the indexes over the last month, led by the Dow Transports, the small cap Russell 2000 index, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500, which is heading to its best monthly performance since December of 2003. In fact, even the Dow Industrials, which is lagging the others, is up almost 3% over the last month. Let's take a look at the numbers for the day, where the NASDAQ Composite picked up another 12 1/3 points today. That is a 4-year closing high on the NASDAQ. S&P 500 also at a 4-year closing high, building on yesterday's 4-year closing high, up 7 points even at 1243. Now it is at an all-time closing high, as you see, for the Russell 2000 index. That today up 8 points, an all-time high. Small caps have been doing very well, really leading this rally. On to the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the larger cap names that we look at, up 68 points on the Dow at 4 o'clock on the East Coast. That's a 3-month high at 10,705. On that note, right back to our stock market reporters, Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange, Bertha Coombs at NASDAQ. Bob.
S&P up 4.4% so far in July. That's excellent. Let's take a look at where we are right now as we close out the month of July. First, the headline is very simple. The bulls have gotten everything they wanted. The economic news has been great, and this week we have broken through to new highs quite convincingly. It just doesn't get much better if you're a bull right now. You heard from Maria, 4-year highs for the S&P 500. 500 and historic highs for the composite, the Russell 2000, and the S&P. Let's take a look at the earnings. That's what's important here. 3/4 of the S&P 500 have now reported. We have passed the bulk of earnings season for the second quarter. Is it good, bad? 70% of those stocks reporting have beat expectations. Is that good? That's very good. We are looking at third quarter guidance that is generally in line. Is that good, in line? Yes, it hasn't slipped at all. The third quarter we're expecting double-digit growth in the third quarter. Is that good? It's great. It's the 9th quarter of double-digit growth for stocks in the S&P 500. That is a string that you do not see very often. We are also even expecting it in the fourth quarter, although it's a little too early to get excited about that. The technicals part of the market, we have seen unusually heavy volume for the summer. Last summer, at this time, I was looking at 1.1, 1.2 billion share days. We're going to do 1.6 today. That's a good number for the July summer. New highs are expanding well north of 300 new highs. Is that good? Yes, that's some of the best numbers we've seen in quite a while. Overall, the overall position of the market is terrific right now from the bulls' point of view. Finally, another topic here, a rare setback for the New York Stock Exchange. Today, New York Supreme Court Justice Charles Ramos this afternoon refused to dismiss a lawsuit seeking to block the New York Stock Exchange merger with Archipelago. Now remember, a suit was brought by an NYSE member, Bill Higgins, alleging that the terms of this deal were unfair to the New York Stock Exchange and to its members. The NYSE was hoping Judge Ramos would dismiss it outright today. Judge Ramos said not so fast. I'll follow that very carefully, let you know if anything develops on that. Let's go over to Bertha. She's standing by at the NASDAQ.
Hi, Bob. Yeah, the NASDAQ once again closing at a new high for the year and just really moving up there. We're seeing this movement coming in the afternoons as the bears sort of try to push down. There's no strength to push down, and so they have to cover in the afternoon, and we move a little bit higher here every day, regaining and surpassing what we did last week. Take a look at what we've done so far in techs this July. Really nice bounce back. The NASDAQ up about 6%. Chip stocks have really been the leaders, up 13% so far for the month. Internet's up 9% thanks to the likes of Amazon, Yahoo, Google with their earnings and outlooks. Software shares up 6%. Really has not been the driver. Microsoft, despite its analyst meeting today, really didn't help push things higher here. Hardware shares up 4%. And when you talk about the internals, we're seeing lots of new highs every day, sometimes on news, sometimes just on sector moves. Take a look, 208 new highs on the NASDAQ. Amazon moving up today, a few days after its earnings. Express Scripts, Patterson Energy on their strong earnings outlooks. Genzyme with good results for a treatment for dialysis patients. And take a look at Bed Bath & Beyond. It's really a broad rally, even among the NASDAQ stocks, Maria.
Berth, thanks very much. Berth Coombs. Let's dig deeper into the markets. Ajay Kapoor back with us.